Today on the channel, it's the return of the Kyle Peterson Top 10, and today on the channel, we're doing it a little bit different, as today, I'm talking my top 10 favorite Wolverine figures of all time.
The spirit of Ultimate Warrior will run forever!
Welcome everyone, Kyle here, and welcome back to the channel for another edition of the Kyle Peterson Top 10. A Thursday tradition here on the channel as we count down my top 5, or in this case, top 10 favorites of something, and we're doing it totally different today. In honor of the 19,000 subscribers to the YouTube channel, this very YouTube channel, thank you guys for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? Make sure you do subscribe. We're going to do something different. We're going to do a top 10 Wolverine figures today on the channel. Now, I haven't done any of these outside of wrestling so far, so this will be our first toe in the water with that. But this will be my top 10 Wolverine figures of all time. Of course, Wolverine, a kid of the 90s like myself, late 80s, early 90s when I got into Wolverine, read his comic. I was all in from Wolverine issue number 1 all the way up to like 110, something like that, and then I dropped off for whatever reason. But Wolverine has always held a special place in my heart, going back to his action figures as well. Now, as usual, this is my top 10, and I asked you guys to put your top 10 in the comments down below. And my top 10 isn't based on, is this the coolest looking figure of all time? Is this the figure with the most bells and whistles of all time? Yeah, that's part of the equation, but it also is nostalgia. Did I own this figure? Have I had it for a long time? Is there a special story behind it? That is the reason for my top 10s or top 5 list, depending on the week. It's not always about, is it the greatest figure of all time as far as articulation and paint applications, things like that. It is all about the whole big picture, and that's what we got here today in this Wolverine top 10. And like I said, make sure you put your list in the comments down below. So without further ado, let's get after it. Let's kick it off at number 10. All right, without further ado, let's kick it off. Let's kick it off at number 10. And number 10 Wolverine figure comes to us from the Marvel Legends line. Of course, Marvel Legends currently making Marvel figures. It makes sense. Hey, it's Marvel Legends. But they do have the license via Hasbro, of course, and Wolverine is in a lot of those lines. We've recently got Wolverine in the latest X-Men wave, the Bone Breaker Build-A-Figure wave, of course. We unboxed that on the channel. Check that one out. But number 10 comes from Marvel Legends, but it comes from the Apocalypse Build-A-Figure wave. And this is Wolverine in his most classic attire. Of course, his debut attire. But I remember when I started really getting into Wolverine, he was in more of his brown attire. And I always thought of that as the old attire. And then when he went back to this, I always thought of this as the new attire, when that wasn't actually the case. But this has always been my favorite look of Wolverine, the yellow and blue. When I think of Wolverine, that's the first incarnation of coloring I think of. And I was very hyped up for this Apocalypse Build-A-Figure because I wanted the fresh new Wolverine in his yellow and blue. I was very excited because, once again, modern toy, modern articulation, all the bells and whistles we were looking for. Now, some years have passed, of course, since this came out, and it doesn't have quite all the bells and whistles that the newer Wolverines have. So this has quickly been outdated, but still holds a special place in my heart. Oh, yes, my heart, like a young Rio. And that's why he's at number 10 here, just because I was looking so forward to getting this one. I was excited for it. Now, a few things that I have some gripes on this one all these years later that weren't as big of a gripe at the time because, hey, it was a shiny new toy at the time. But his claws aren't the best here. I like the more modern claws we have now. These like to kind of fall out on you, get a little sideways. Just not the best claws we got with Wolverine. But a fabulous figure. Like I said, a little bit out of date with the bells and whistles of Marvel Legends as of right now. But boy, still one that I was looking forward to. There was a lot of anticipation for, and one I'm very happy to have in my collection. And that's why this Wolverine Marvel Legends Apocalypse Build-A-Figure Wave Edition comes in at number 10. All right, we're feeling fine at number 9. And number 9 Wolverine goes all the way back to Toy Biz. Yes, Toy Biz. That was my first Marvel line I collected as a kid. I guess I got a couple of the Secret Wars figures when I was really, really young. I remember having Captain America, Doctor Doom, Dr. Octopus. I loved the doctors back then. But really the Marvel line of Toy Biz with the superhero line, the Daredevil, Captain America, Hulk, Punishers. But of course, X-Men Series 1, Uncanny X-Men more specifically. Number 9, get Wolverine, but in his brown and yellow costume. We just talked a little bit about his costumes, of course, but the X-Men Series 1 wave was just a game changer. I remember being so pumped, so excited for this set. I remember I wanted the whole set, of course, like every little kid does. I wanted the whole set. I said, Dad, I need this. And I specifically remember this story, and I talked to my dad about it from time to time, still to this day. But it was a summertime when I remember this coming out at my local Toys R Us in the summer, and it was crazy back in the 80s and 90s because a lot of toys, yeah, sometimes they wouldn't be there, but 9 times out of 10, they would still have the toys. They would get case upon case. The old motto in the 80s and 90s in retail was stack it high, watch it fly. Now it's a little bit more conservative in the inventory, as we see, not just toys, but across the board. But we saw these out at Toys R Us one day, and I was begging my dad. I didn't get any that day. Dad's like, nope, you're not getting anything. But I begged because Kyle was relentless at an early age, just like now. I never give up. I never give up the fight, and wouldn't give up the fight with my dad about these. And I said, Dad, I need these. I need this. I need this X-Men Series 1. I was probably a really annoying kid. But my dad finally said, okay. It was Monday morning. I remember Monday. He went to work, and he said, hey, I'm going to work, like he does. He's a working man. He never took days off like a young Kyle. He went to work, and he said, here's the deal. If you pull all this water grass, we just moved into a new house. My dad had new sod come down, and we had all those water grass. You have to pick them out with your hands. And he said, hey, if you pick up all those, I'll give you a penny for every one you pull. And I quickly did the math, got the calculator out, and went to work. And I spent the entire day going through my front yard, backyard, and I filled up one full garbage can full of this water grass. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was waiting outside, my dad waiting for him to pull up. He pulls up, I go run to his car. Dad, I did it. Here's what I got. And I, of course, had it all written down. Totally honest, of course. I counted every blade of grass I put in there. And I had a huge garbage can, like I said. And I remember saying, Dad, come over here. You can count it. Let's start counting it. We need to go to Toys R Us. We need to get that X-Men series. And I said, Dad, let's count this. And he said, yeah, you know what? I'll take your word for it. What is it? And it was, of course, I don't remember what the total was, but it was more than enough to buy the entire X-Men wave. These were probably $5.99 back in the day. But I got the entire wave, X-Men Series 1 set. I remember that full day of hard work. And it's funny, my dad just kind of pat me on the head saying, you know what, I'll take your word for it, because he knew how bad I wanted these. He was a collector at heart as well, as we know. So I was very jazzed, very hyped to get X-Men Series 1. Very cool line, and I followed that line almost to the end of the Toy Biz version before it came into the Marvel Legends Toy Biz crossover type time frame. But this Wolverine's so iconic, part of Series 1. Of course, this is my childhood one. I'm not sure where the accessories are. I think they're in the accessories bag, but I did just grab this one, and this is the one I worked so hard for as a little kid. But very cool because the mask was removable. He came with a sword. Of course, the claws, they went in and could be stayed in, or you can knock them out. Just cool features. Now, does this have all the bells and whistles of a modern day Wolverine? Absolutely not. But this one holds a special place in my heart because I worked so hard for it as a little kid. Whenever I see this one, I always think back to this very iconic Wolverine for me in the Series 1 of the Ankeny X-Men Toy Biz edition. So number 9, Wolverine. All right, coming in at number 8, we veer a little bit because this one, spoiler alert here, is not a comic book version of Wolverine. This comes from, I guess, the MCU or whatever you want to call it, but it comes from the movie time frame of Wolverine. And what is this one? I believe, if my memory serves me well, like a young Bob Dylan, this would be a Hasbro Pulse exclusive, maybe even PulseCon back in the day, but it is from the 2-pack with Charles Xavier. It is Wolverine from the movies, of course, Hugh Jackman version of Wolverine. Now, I love the Wolverine movies. Hey, I love some Wolverine. Could they be better in spots? Yes, but for the most part, they got the job done for me. And of course, from the Logan movie with Old Man Xavier and Old Man Wolverine, I guess you can call it too, is where this one comes from. And this one is awesome because you get a battle-damaged head. He's been in a fight. He's been beat up. And then with this one, we get blood on the claws, something missing from most of our Wolverine figures. Now, I get it. This is a Hasbro Pulse exclusive. This isn't necessarily geared to kids out there on the Walmart Target store shelves, so they could get away with something like that. But this one just displays beautifully Wolverine and kind of his suit going on, the bloody claws, the beat-up face. Just something special about this one. It always catches my eye on my displays. When I look around and I see this one, I always do say, man, that is a cool figure, and that's why it's on my Wolverine list. And like I said, it's a little bit of an outlier here, as this comes from the movie editions Wolverine, where the rest in here are going to be comic book related. But coming in at number 8, Wolverine from the Charles Xavier 2-pack. All right, we're at the number 7 spot in our Wolverine Top 10 countdown. At number 7, once again, we do go to Marvel Legends, a recurring theme here in this very video. But number 7 comes from the Marvel Legends Riders series. Of course, we got Ghost Rider, we got Squirrel Girl, but we also got old Patch Wolverine here, and this is how I display him with the patch, of course, but you get Wolverine and his motorcycle. Of course, Wolverine throughout the years, many a different motorcycles he's been driving in, even some Jeeps from time to time. But Wolverine is motorcycle, a classic Rider series figure, one I really do enjoy. That's why it's number 7 here on this very countdown. But I use, of course, the patched head here. Very cool there. I love the wife beater he's got on, the jeans. Just Wolverine out for a stroll on a Sunday, and of course, gets in some trouble with some Sentinels or Sabretooth or something like that line along the way. But very cool to get a vehicle. We don't get a lot of 6-inch scale figure vehicles, so this Rider line, very special, and nothing more iconic when you think vehicles with Wolverine, unless you think of his old Toy Biz Jeep back in the day. But this one just really does hit the spot for me. Always liked this one the day it came out, and still to this day has a prominent spot in my display shelf of Wolverine figures and Marvel Legend figures. So coming in here at number 7, Marvel Legends Riders, Wolverine, or Patch, but Wolverine. All right, we're at the number 6 spot in our Wolverine Top 10 countdown, and number 6 once again comes from Hasbro, once again comes from Marvel Legend, but once again a little bit of an outlier here, as this comes from the 1/6 scale figure line Marvel Legends had for a short while in Wolverine, of course. Well, I did get all of these 1/6 figures that were released at the time, except for Hulk, which I had to get later on. I got all these for $10 a piece at a little toy swap event, and I did $10 for this. Was a heck of a deal. And I don't think these quite caught on because of the more expensive price point, of course. Can you imagine what they'd be? They'd probably be double what they were then now if they were released. But a very underrated and a bit forgotten line, I think, with Marvel Legends collectors. 1/6 scale, not necessarily my scale of choice. I'm a 1/12 guy. But these look really cool, and I have them all displayed on one shelf together, and that's what works for me. Of course, there was Spider-Man, Black Suit Spider-Man, Thor, Iron Man, Hulk, Daredevil, a couple versions of Deadpool. There's a lot of them in this line, but not as deep as I think Hasbro was hoping to go with this line. But still, very, very cool. Looks like Wolverine all day. You can turn him into battle-damaged Wolverine if you want to, which is always a cool choice for me. But just a fabulous one, and of course, the most iconic version of Wolverine to me. Very similar to that Apocalypse one we talked about earlier, but this one's just so much more better detail, but also feels a lot more sturdy in the hand, especially in the claws. Just very, very cool with the butterfly joints on this one. Displays perfectly. That's why it's the centerpiece of my 1/12 scale Marvel Legend display. So there it is, the 1/12 edition Marvel Legend Wolverine coming in at number 6. All right, we've come to the halfway point in our top 10 Wolverine countdown. Make sure you put your list together in the comments down below, and make sure you put them in order. That's the fun part. That is the hard part. That is the challenging part. And of course, make sure you subscribe to this channel, as we got videos every single day, as you guys are probably fully aware of by now. So now coming in at number 5 is the most recent Marvel Legends, of course by Hasbro, release of Wolverine. And it's a Wolverine I'm not super familiar with, but something about this one has really stole my heart. This one very well, unless something strange happens, will be a top 10 Marvel Legends figure of the year for me. What am I talking about? We're talking about the latest Wolverine, like I said, for the Bone Breaker Build-A-Figure wave. Now, it is a little bit traditional blue and yellow Wolverine, which you guys know I really do love. I love the idea of getting a masked head and an unmasked head. I really do like this Wolverine. A bit plain, I guess, for some people. Not a ton of accessories with this one. Not even an extra set of hands, which is a little strange for Wolverine. But this is apparently his heated claws version. Now, I see this and I think blood claws. All day long, blood claws. Very cool looking here, but apparently Wolverine somehow in the new comics has the feature and ability to heat his claws up, which I guess, hey, why not? Why not? But I like these. I love how it looks. I love this face more so than the classic Wolverine masked head. Something about this one with the angry look and, of course, the claws. And these claws are so much better than some of the other Wolverines. These newer style claws they're going with. I hope they stick with these unless they can figure something out better, but a heck of a difference from the Apocalypse one we saw at number 10 all the way back here to number 5. So a little bit of an interesting one. As I said, it is the shiny new toy, and maybe I got some blinders on because of that, but it's the shiny new Wolverine, and he comes in all the way at number 5 in my top 10 list. All right, we've come to the number 4 spot in our top 10 Wolverine figures of all time, as voted by me. Of course, this is my list. Put yours in the comments down below. But number 4, once again, childhood nostalgia is here. And one of my favorite Wolverines of all time, obviously because it's number 4, comes once again from the Toy Biz line back in the day. And it is Battle Ravaged Wolverine. One of the coolest packaging in the Toy Biz canon of figures, I guess we'd say. I absolutely loved this X-Men packaging from way back in the day. And this Battle Ravaged Wolverine, absolutely next level. This is a figure that got re-released many different times, many different cards, even different colors a few times. But of course, Wolverine in the comic books, the animated series, all over the place, had his scraps, had his fights with Sabretooth, Silver Samurai, you name it. And more often times than not, he was destroyed in battle, had his gear all cut up, tore up, beat up, and that's what we got here with this Wolverine. Him that's been through the ringer, really. Battle-damaged Wolverine, battle-ravaged, whatever you want to call it. Just absolutely fabulous figure. Good look to this one. I always love the action feature on the back with the arms up and down. The good claws here, but just this was one I always had tussling with Sabretooth. And of course, that Sabretooth, one of the best Marvel figures of all time, actually, from Toy Biz. The second version, not the first so much. But this Wolverine and that, I had square off many a times. There was also that kind of convict Sabretooth figure. I remember them squaring off all the time. So it was very, very cool and very awesome all these years later. Now, they've had some battle-damaged Wolverines since then, but this one always catches my eye. This one's always been special to me, and that's why this one from Toy Biz comes in at number 4. All right, we're at the final 3 in our top 10 Wolverine countdown. And number 3, once again, we go to Hasbro. We go to Marvel Legends. But this one, we go to the fan channel exclusive Wolverine, Cowboy Wolverine. And a very, very cool one. Something about this one, I don't know what it is, but Cowboy Wolverine, of course, much like the one on the cycle, the patch version, Cowboy Wolverine is another incarnation. We see him with his cowboy hat, of course, his black wife beater, white wife beater, whatever he wants to wear. Blue jeans, of course. Just a fabulous Wolverine once again that just has so much personality in a small little figure. This could be the most personality in any of these figures. Absolutely love this one. I love the simple factor of this. Great for customs if you're wanting to change this into somebody else as well. Of course, different heads and things. But just a very, very strong one. And one that did go down to deep discount for a while. One that I don't think a lot of people really fell in love with. I think I like this more than the average Joe out there by a long shot. But just a special one. One that displays really well. I have this one in like a bar setup in my display collection. That's where he belongs. He's ready to fight somebody at a moment's notice. Just a very, very cool representation of this style of Wolverine and one of the best Wolverine figures of all time. So good, it came in at number 3 on my top 10 list. All right, we're getting dangerously close to the end of our top 10 list, and we're at the number 2 spot right now. And once again, we go back to Hasbro. We go back to Marvel Legends, a recurring theme here. I know some of you guys are saying, why isn't there a Mafex one? Why isn't there a Sentinel version or whatever it may be of Wolverine in this list? And once again, it's my list. You can have your list in the comments down below, but just because it costs a ton of money or just because it has all the fancy articulation doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be on my list. That being said, who knows? You give me one of those, maybe it would be on my list, but I'm not going to spend some of the pricier pieces like that. Really not for me, and I think would take out some of my enjoyment of the figures if I spent that much on it, if that makes any sense at all. But number 2, like I said, Hasbro Marvel Legend. We go to another recent one that really blew away my expectations here. I wouldn't say I was down on this figure coming out because I was excited for it, but this actually blew me away. Of course, check out the review on the channel. I did review this one, like a lot of these here on the videos of the top 10. But this one comes from Disney Store, Hasbro Pulse, shared exclusive, X-Men the Animated Series Wolverine, which one that looked okay in images but looked a lot better and feels a lot better in your hand. And I know a lot of people are down on this one, and actually this one is probably my favorite so far of the X-Men animated series figures. I love the shading to this one. It isn't overly shaded. You can still smoke and mirror this one in if you really need to in a regular X-Men set. But these extra long animated claws are something I didn't know I needed until I saw this. I love the big over-exaggerated kind of Batman-like ears going on Wolverine here. And then, of course, like I've said numerous times in this video, the very cool blue and yellow nostalgic, and then me being such a huge fan of the animated series when I was a kid just brings all this home, connects all the dots to make this one come in at number 2 in my top 10 list. All right, here we are at the number 1 spot in my number 1 Wolverine figure of all time. As I've said before, make sure you put your list in the comments down below. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. Every single Thursday, we got a top 5 or a top 10 list on the channel, and they've got tons more. If you've missed any of them, we've got a ton of those to go check out, of course, in the past. And make sure you like this video, and then make sure you're following along on Patreon. Link in the description below, where you get videos like this much, much earlier than traditional YouTube. Bonus content, exclusive content, early access to videos, and of course, monthly giveaways. And as always, the best way to support the channel. So without further ado, let's get into the number 1 Wolverine figure of all time as voted by me. Now this one, guess what? Nostalgia wins. Yes, we go back to Marvel. We go back to Toy Biz. We go back to Wolverine number 2 in his classic blue and yellow colors. Now, by no means does this have all the articulation, all the bells and whistles, anything like that, but what it does have is the specialness factor. I've talked about it a few times in this video. I remember wanting this. I remember getting that original Wolverine that came in higher up on my list, of course, in the brown costume. I said, oh, they got to give us the yellow. They got to give us the blue and yellow, and this was the first incarnation of that line in the blue and yellow, and I was so hyped up for it. I was so excited to get this, and I broke it on the first weekend as it had a loose arm, and the arm broke off. Oh, there goes his gun. Broke off his arm that weekend, and I was just mortified because I'm a guy that takes very good care of my toys even when I was a little kid. So luckily my dad did go pick me up another one, and I did have this one replaced. But then about a year later, I had him in my bin of toys, and his arm broke off again. So this one has a terrible arms that will break off very easy if you're not careful. But I did get that replaced once again. So I like this figure so many times, I actually picked it up 3 different occasions. This is a crown jewel, a centerpiece of an X-Men collection from the Toy Biz days, especially around this time. Just absolutely fabulous. Like I said earlier, though, it doesn't have the bells and whistles, doesn't have all the cool stuff that we have in this day and age, but man, for the time, this was a game changer. About every friend I had, even if they weren't into X-Men, even if they weren't into Marvel toys, had this. This was very similar to He-Man back in the day, or some of the LJN wrestlers. Hey, I don't like He-Man, but I got these at his birthday present, or my grandma got them for me, or whatever. Hey, I'm not into wrestling, but somehow on Easter, I ended up getting 3 wrestlers. That's how this Wolverine was. About every kid on the old playground had this Wolverine. So iconic to a generation, so iconic to me all these years later. It always brings me back picking up this one, playing this, always having him in my wars and battles with my X-Men toys as a kid. Just absolutely fabulous, this Wolverine. And because of my nostalgia glasses, because of my love for the olden times, this Wolverine comes in at number 1, the Toy Biz Wolverine in the yellow and blue costume. Can you believe it? It's true. That is number 1 on my top 10 Wolverine figures. Like I said, make sure you put your list in the comments down below. And I should mention, don't forget to follow me on social media, SirPaul64 on Twitter, Instagram, _Kyle_Peterson. You can always follow along and always pick up a t-shirt over at ProWrestlingTees.com. Search Kyle Peterson. So for the top 10 Wolverine figures of all time, as voted by me, I'm Kyle, and I'll see you guys all real soon.